Hello and welcome to the LFC Transfer Room podcast. Today we have a very, very special episode for you guys today. My name is Rigo, joined by my co-host Damon, and our very special guest, Rickie Haywood-Williams. You may know him as a TV presenter and radio DJ, as well as the host of the Footballers Football podcast. If you haven't subscribed yet, make sure to do so. Welcome, Rickie. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Rigo, Damo, absolute pleasure to be here. Love what you guys do. I can't wait. I've been looking forward to this. I know we've had to postpone and rearrange a couple of times, but honestly, I've been buzzing to get on this podcast.
That's this life, isn't it? That's this life. You just got to do what you got to do, haven't you?
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Definitely. Speaking of postponements, you had a very special reason to reschedule for us on Wednesday. You were busy. Can you enlighten our listeners as to what you were doing?
Yeah, so we were scheduled in to do this podcast on Wednesday, but as you mentioned earlier, I do the Footballers Football podcast with Mikel Antonio from West Ham and Callum Wilson from Newcastle United, and Mikel, how should we say? I love him to bits, but he's like one of the flakiest people that I know by his own admission. And we asked him if he could get us tickets to the game, obviously West Ham, Liverpool. And he was like, his response was, I'll try. I'll try. But lo and behold, he came through in the 11th hour. It was about 2:30, 3 o'clock on Wednesday. Got a WhatsApp that I didn't see until about 4 o'clock. And when I saw it, I was like, oh my God, it's going to clash with the LFC Transfer Room podcast. So I was like, you know what? If we postpone this podcast, at least we can talk about the match and my experience of the match with you guys. So I was like, it's a win-win, really. So I was like, I'm sure they won't be too angry with that.
I definitely wasn't. I was able to catch the match uninterrupted and kind of keep up with Arsenal's collapse there against
Arsenal's demise. Oh my God.
So can you fill us in on the match day experience? As we know, Liverpool went down 1-0 early. You could tell us how the crowd was going as far as LFC supporters and your feelings on the match overall.
Well, first and foremost, I was in with the West Ham fans because obviously Mikel was giving me the tickets. So I'm with my producer from the Footballers Football podcast, and we're sitting amongst a bunch of obviously West Ham fans. And we get into the stadium. We were probably about 3 or 4 minutes late because Mikel didn't tell us what gate to pick up the tickets from. So once we figured out that mystery, we finally made it into.
It's a big stadium.
Oh my gosh, Damo is absolutely huge, and it's just a bowl, isn't it? So it's just kind of like you just go around in circles. But we finally got in. A few minutes in, we sit down. I've got to say the atmosphere was electric. West Ham fans really showed up on that day for that match. And after a couple of minutes, I could see Mikel looked like he was quite lively in the early stages of the game, and he was obviously part of the first goal. And obviously, our focus is, myself and my producer, we're both Liverpool fans, but obviously we're there to see what Mikel can do as well, as if we can get any banter for the show, for the podcast as well. And he didn't disappoint because obviously he was a big part of that first goal. I think he laid off the ball out to the wing. And then used himself as a screen and a bit of a rebound for the return and set up the shot. And it was actually like a bullet of a shot past Alisson. And the crowd obviously erupted, and myself and my producer Callum just stayed sitting down and then had to stand up kind of because everybody else is standing up, but the place erupted and we were just absolutely fuming. But I've
smile and wave, boys. Smile and wave.
Yeah, exactly, Dave. Exactly. But I've got to say it was a great goal. It was a great goal, really well worked. And we've seen a lot of goals kind of come from that side of the pitch during this season. So at that point, I was like, oh no, not again. But I've got to say, over the last couple of games, we've done really well. Liverpool have done really well in responding to goals quite quickly. And it was the same on Wednesday. And obviously Gakpo scored that brilliant goal.
Gorgeous.
I've got to say, I don't know what you guys think. I'm sure you have the exact same opinion. But for me, that game, Gakpo really showed what type of player he is and the level that he's at. He just really shone. He really stood out in that game. He can receive the ball on the half turn. He can turn, defense into attack. He rarely gives the ball away. He really looks after that ball, and he normally makes the right choice with regards to where he distributes it to. Very Firmino-esque. Like I'm gutted that Bobby's leaving at the end of the season, but Gakpo makes it just a little bit less, hurtful, because obviously he seems to be able to do some of the stuff that Firmino can do, which is a massive plus for us, right?
And he can score more as well. I think that's a big difference between Firmino. I think he does have that sort of link up, doesn't he, to the wingers? And we've seen the last few games where attacking wise we look much better. Which looks much better, and I think he's key. Do you think he's been the key to that lock?
Yeah, like when Gakpo first joined, he had a couple of games, and I was a little bit underwhelmed, just because I wasn't quite sure what type of player he was. I was like, he's not electric in terms of his pace. Is he an out and out striker? Is he a winger? I was like, where does he quite fit in? And at that point, we were still all buzzing off of Nunes and the fact that we'd signed Nunes for 80 odd million, and he seemed like this absolute like king of chaos. Yeah, king of chaos, which I absolutely love. And I thought to myself, how does Gakpo fit into that? But Jurgen Klopp has done an absolute masterstroke in moving him into the middle and playing him as that false number 9, what we call as Liverpool fans the Firmino role. And he's just absolutely smashing it. And yeah, you're right, Damo. We have looked really, really, really good going forward over the last few games. Salah's looked good, even though he was quite isolated in that game on Wednesday. He didn't really have that much. He had a lot of touches. I feel like he was coming inside a bit too much. I think he should have stayed a little bit wider. But they double up on them all the time. It's quite hard if you're Mo Salah, right? It's quite tricky. But you're right. Yeah, the front three looked really good, and Jota could have had a couple of goals, if not a hat trick, in that game. If he puts away half of his chances, we win that game like 4-1.
Couple of headers he could have bagged there. For sure.
Absolutely.
For that first goal, just to go back to that, do you think? I know a few people were crying out there for Virgil to do a better job covering or get his body in there. What's your take on that? Has he dropped off levels? Should he be a little bit more aggressive?
Yeah, Virgil. Absolutely love him. But he hasn't been at, and I'm sure he would admit this, he hasn't been at that level that he set before the injury. And he's come back. And in fairness to him and to Trent as well, they've both been getting a little bit of stick over the course of the season. But I heard somebody say, I'm not sure where I heard it, but I heard someone say, that we've got two amazing players when they're not judging them against, we're not judging Virgil against, I don't know, Tyrone Mings or whoever, or we're not judging Trent against Reece James or Trippier or whatever. We're judging them against themselves because they're that good and they've done so well that we're judging them by the standards that they set. So for me, that's okay. If they've dropped off to the level that they set, I can deal with that because they were that good. I think people forget how good our team was, and when I think they kind of all peaked at the same time, we were unbelievable. We were like frightening. Everybody in Europe was absolutely scared.
That makes this season a lot worse, doesn't it? That really hurts. That hurts. The level we hit, right? Yeah. When Man City are pairing like this, I said it earlier. I think it was yesterday after the Arsenal game. I said, when Man City are pairing like this, it's only us that have reached that sort of level to match them. Yeah. Arsenal have tried this season, but they're not. It's just not that level. When City's really turned it on, they can't keep up. It's a different City. And for us to play like that we have this season, knowing that we are capable of that, it's so hard, isn't it? It's so hard.
Yeah. I think, Damo, you're right, 100%. And I think once we as Liverpool fans, once we realised that top four was probably going to be a bit of a pipe dream, I think the season became a little bit more enjoyable. We could kind of just like relax a little bit and go, do you know what? Let's just focus on trying to get Trent playing well. Let's see what he can do in midfield. Like, that was a great masterstroke by Klopp. Let's see what if we can get Diaz back in the team, and let's see if we can get Jota scoring again. And we just kind of just chilled out a little bit, I think, as fans. And I think the team at Liverpool and Klopp's backroom staff have done really well to get them purring again.
Definitely. Much more positive performances after we bowed out of the Champions League. I think, knowing we're out, losing to Real Madrid again. Again. Let us focus on the Premier League and trying to at least right the ship stylistically for Liverpool, because we were unidentifiable for long stretches of the year. Like if we're comparing to the teams of the past, of their style of play, nothing similar whatsoever, especially defensively when we're conceding goals, for fun. Much better now. But going back to your comment earlier, as far as the resiliency of the team, I think it definitely has picked up in this stretch. Went down and again picked ourselves back up. What do you contribute that to? Do you think it's just players that have been gone for long stretches coming back? A change, Trent going back into going into midfield when we're attacking, kind of give us that base in the midfield. What do you kind of attribute our resiliency these past few matches?
Yeah, it's a good question. I personally, I think. Oh, sorry, I got a plane going over above. I think the turnaround. No.
Bit too early, then it. Bit too
early. Yeah. So why have we turned it around? Well, I'm not saying that Liverpool are out of it. I'm not saying that we're back or anything like that. But the depths that we dropped to in terms of our level was pretty low, considering the highs that we've had over the last few years. And like after every match day, I was hiding from social media, and I was hiding from like all. I didn't want to listen to any interviews. I didn't want to listen to any podcasts, just because it was doom and gloom, wasn't it? So the fact that we're now kind of getting a bit of form back, I think we're unbeaten in 4 now. I think I could be wrong, but we seem to be getting a bit of form back. What's that down to? I think we've had a bit of a stretch where the team hasn't changed that much. I think I think Klopp's kept the same team for a little bit. And a massive thing that a lot of people were talking about at the start of the season, or the first half of the first quarter of the season was, and people aren't talking about it now, is the fact that Liverpool, we were fighting on all fronts last season. We played every single match a club team in this country could possibly play. And that is going to take its toll. I don't care what anybody says. If you look at all the players, everybody's, and throw the World Cup in there as well. I'm forgetting the World Cup as well. Yeah. So throw that in as well. Off the back of that insane season that we had last year, there's going to be a drop off. There's going to be tired legs. There's going to be a bit of, a bit of tiredness in there that creeps in, and a lot of our midfield. I think it's fair to say, Hendo. I absolutely love Jordan Henderson. I stand corrected. When he first came in, there was a period of time when I was like, I'm not too sure about him. I'm not sure what he brings to the team.
Was that because it was Gerrard? Or was that because of Gerrard?
No, it wasn't.
That level of Gerrard, do you think?
No, it wasn't because of that. Because I knew very early on that he was nothing like Steven Gerrard. There was no comparison. So it wasn't because of that. Because for me, it was more because, do you remember when he first came in? I think King Kenny was still the manager at the time. And I think he's admitted as well that he was suffering from low confidence at the time. And Kenny was just, he kept throwing him in. And Jordan didn't want the ball. I could see a lot of the time he'd shy away from the ball. He'd hide a little bit. And then Brendan Rodgers comes in. We have, a resurgence. Obviously, the first season was okay. The second season, we all know what happened, and it was just amazing. Suarez, Sterling, Sturridge, and Hendo, for me, during that season was so important, and he really came into his own. He was the engine room. He was the guy that used to, get the ball on the turnover, and he just had so much energy, and you could see that he had something about him with regards to captain material. Maybe not, definitely not like Gerrard, like we know that. But you can, I heard a long time ago, like some people can lead from the front, but you can also lead from the middle. You don't always have to be the best. You can be, in the middle, but still be really influential. And I feel like Jordan's done that. He's led by example. He's led by effort. He's led by, and that's not to say that he didn't bring or doesn't bring really good qualities to our team when we played really well, because he has. But I feel like now, I was watching him on Wednesday, and when he came off, he was absolutely broken. Like, he was a broken man. Like, he looked like he'd just gone 10 rounds with Tyson Fury. He looked absolutely, he was dripping with sweat. I mean, and he leaves his heart out on the pitch, and that's why I love Jordan Henderson, because he gives everything. But I just thought to myself, he can't do what he did. The qualities that he had that was so good for the team when we were at our peak in this era under Klopp, they're now waning. And that's nothing against Jordan Henderson. That's just father time, right? That happens to all players at some point. So I feel like, the midfield, and we've all spoken about this as fans over the course of the season, when we realized that we weren't going to invest anymore. Like back in the summer, I was gutted, because I was like, we still need some midfielders, man. Why is Oxlade-Chamberlain, who I really, really was a big supporter of during his time here, but he just can't stay fit? I love him, but he just can't stay fit. He's got great qualities, but he just can't stay fit. We need to replace him, I was thinking at the time. But there was talk of him going to Manchester United, I think, for like 10 million at one point. Then I was like, that's a good move for the Ox. Let's get some fresher legs in. And then he ended up staying. Myself. yeah, I would have driven him. No, I love the Ox. Then there was James Milner. I love James Milner. I love the fact that I can see that, we've all seen the clips of him, spurring on the team during lockdown and like shouting to Jordan Henderson when he was playing in defense. And we all heard how influential he is as a player. And I know that transfers into the dressing room. I know that himself, Hendo, Gini Wijnaldum, when he was at the club, were massive, massive vocal leaders in the team. So it worries me that when he goes, like, who's going to replace that? And also with Henderson as well. But at the same time, if you replace them, maybe not get rid of Hendo, but just bring somebody in who's as good as him, but can develop into something even better, I think that's the way to go.
Is there anyone you're thinking of in particular?
Me personally, I think we should go for Ryan Gravenberch at Bayern Munich. I think he's because we didn't get Bellingham, I think he, in terms of stature, in terms of ability, he's not as good as Bellingham. We know that. Bellingham's a generational talent. We all know that. And we know that he could have been top tier, top elite football player for Liverpool for the next 10 years if we got him this year. He could be the next Gerrard, like, easily. Yeah. And that's as big a praise as any Liverpool fan could give any player, right? But let's not talk about Bellingham. It's not happening this year. Let's get that out of our heads. But I feel like in terms of stature, in terms of like his height and his physique and the way that he plays the game, I feel like he's probably a good understudy or a good alternative to Bellingham. So I would say Bellingham. I would also say, they're talking about the kid Thuram, aren't they? I keep hearing a lot about
I really like him from Nice.
Yeah.
Klopp Thuram. Yep.
That's right. I mean, I think he plays the number 6 role, I think.
He's actually been shifted around 6, 8. They even had him on the left wing a couple of matches. So he's
right.
And at 6'4", that's outrageous.
That's powerhouse.
So I'm just thinking about him driving from midfield, connecting, ending up in the box, and smacking that ball in.
We're going to soon have an NBA side, aren't we? I mean, Gakpo's top.
Yeah, I think 6'4", Gakpo, 6'4".
Yeah, he's got that.
Yeah.
NBA side.
Yeah, but that's our. I mean, look at Fabinho. Fabinho's he's no shrinking violet. He's pretty massive as well. Gini wasn't that big, but he had the pace and the power. And I think
the thickness too, though.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like, I know we've all said it, we haven't replaced Gini. We haven't replaced him as a player, that role. We got Thiago in, who we all know, Thiago, absolute baller. No look passes, one touches, the fake and the part. He's so beautiful to watch as a football player, but he doesn't bring the attributes that made us so formidable in the midfield, in my opinion. He's not going to win you back the ball necessarily. He's not going to, win the ball back in a counter press or anything like that. But when I felt like Thiago was perfect for when our plan A wasn't going to be working, like, the pace and power in midfield, and you've got a low block team that's just parking the bus. That's when you bring in Thiago, and he can break the teams down because he can penetrate with like some just amazing passes. You know, La Masia, like he's come from good stock, isn't he? So I think that's when you bring Thiago in, and I feel like Gravenberch, I feel like Thuram, and I know this one divides opinion, and I'm kind of on the fence with it too. But I'd be willing to go for Mason Mount. I'd be willing to just because you're both giving me funny looks there. Just because I feel he's got high energy. He can do everything that Jordan Henderson can do, but he can also give you goals and give you assists, in my opinion. And I feel like
he has got some.
Yeah, I feel like he'd flourish under Klopp.
Yeah.
Those are 3 terrific shouts there. Going back to that Thiago point, I think he would have been way more successful had he taken Henderson's role, and then a Genie type would have been brought in, because I don't think he can, since Hendo has dropped levels, he can't compensate for that, and therefore can't really do his role. For a good while, he was, one of the PL's best defenders at his position as far as counting stats and tackles. But I think just bad planning all around, unfortunately.
Yeah. And also, you can't account for, the drop off in form and kind of like in fitness, and you just can't account for that, because obviously Fabinho, who looked absolutely colossal, just came back this season. I thought it was a new player. I was like, who is this guy? What have you done with my Fabinho?
What's happened to him over summer? Yeah, I get that. I think that's the one that shocked me more than anyone. I think Matip sort of as well, because Matip was unbelievable again last season, one of the best players. But like Henderson, I think he was dropping off already. I think Naby's obviously injury prone. Oxlade-Chamberlain's injury prone. Yeah. So going into this summer, you just veiled off a few players that you want. Yeah. And there's many players. Do you think we're going to get enough players that we need?
How many do you guys think we need? Not how many do we need, but how many do you think that we will actually?
I think we need at least 3 midfielders. At least
we do. Yeah, I agree. Definitely need 3 midfielders.
That's with midfielders. Yeah. And then a right back, and possibly.
You get right back, Damo. Yeah, honestly, you want Trent in the middle now, don't you? The double pivot.
This new thing with Trent, right? And I don't want Trent in midfield. I'm doing a video on that, a separate video on that. Trent is my guy. Trent is my right back. But I still think we need that sort of competition for him. And Calvin Ramsey has come in and he got injured, and something's not right about that, because he has come back and he hasn't been playing anyway. Yeah. Gomez for me is not a right back. I think Gomez has dropped off at centre back anyway, but he was pathetic at right back before that. I think
Gomez is a centre back, isn't he? That can play right back.
Yeah. Centre back that can play. I think Virgil van Dijk could do a job at right back. You know what I'm saying? I honestly do, but a right back, and I still think we need maybe not this summer, but we definitely need to look at right wing.
No, 100%. Because Mo, you're so right, Damo, because we're so lucky that Mo Salah, he's rarely injured. He's rarely
he's never injured.
He's never injured, is he? His stats in terms of just showing up game after game, a bit like what Mane used to be like, it's just incredible. And we're taking that for granted a little bit, because there's going to come a time when he, God forbid it doesn't happen anytime soon, but he will get injured at some point. And then who goes into that slot? Who plays there? And obviously we've got Ben Doak, who can play out there. He's shown great promise, but he's not ready to fill the boots of Mo Salah just yet. We know that. We can hopefully develop him and kind of get him up to speed. But you're 100% right. We need to look at someone that can cover Mo Salah like a definite understudy. And I know this because whenever I play with Liverpool on FIFA, that's the first thing that I do. I get an understudy to play in that position for the cup games.
All right, then. You're in charge. I don't want to say percentage FIFA. That's the excuse some people use. Say, "Oh, you're just playing FIFA too much." No, you're the Liverpool board right now. You're the recruitment staff.
Yeah.
How many are you bringing in? And you've rolled off names already, but how many are you bringing in? Are you going to go with the 3 midfielders?
I think so. I think we need it as a matter of urgency, just simply because I remember when we brought in Núñez last year and we lost. We lost
Origi, Taki.
Taki,
yeah. I'm thinking of Minamino. Yes, I'm thinking of Minamino. So I was thinking, right. So we've lost all of these players that obviously they weren't first team starters, but in terms of our squad, they made our squad feel powerful. Like I felt like there's not too much drop off if somebody has to be rested or if someone's got a little niggle. We didn't drop a level too much, and then all these
they won
guys.
Us the cup double, mate. They won us the cup double.
Absolutely.
And Kelleher won us the cup double.
100%. Yeah. You're right. You're 100% right, Damo. And when those guys went, I remember thinking, okay, well, we're going to replace them. We'll bring in some new kind of like new blood. And when I heard that, Ox was staying and Cater wasn't going anywhere, and like, even though I get the James Milner situation because he brings what he brings off the pitch and in the dressing room, I understand, and the culture, I get that. But in terms of on the pitch, we've dropped a level. We've dropped maybe 2 levels. And, I just thought to myself, this isn't good. This isn't good. But I think we all got a bit blindsided. We all got a little bit, not carried away, but I think we thought it was going to be okay after the charity shield game. Did you not, Damo? I did. I remember thinking, nope. It's business as usual. We'll be fine. It's fine. Klopp knows what he's doing.
We looked good though, didn't we? We did look good.
We looked amazing. We looked amazing.
That was our high point of this year, unfortunately.
The only high point. First game of the season.
That's your Christmas DVD right there. Season highlights. 90 minutes.
Don't go past chapter 1 on it. But just to reinforce your point there, for long stretches this year, Klopp had nothing to call off the bench. We were bringing in 2 goalkeepers into each matchday squad, and at that point, I mean, you kind of have to, in a way, feel bad, but at the same way, feel upset because we can see this kind of coming. Like, why didn't you do something about it? But I know there's a lot of factors at play there between FSG and
there's a lot of personnel changes and behind the scenes that have like affected that recruitment, because obviously our recruitment was amazing for so long, wasn't it? Like we were at the forefront of, people were talking about Liverpool as the forefront of recruitment for 4 or 5 years, and I was just blown away, Rigo, by how much we dropped off so quickly in that department. I just couldn't believe it.
And again, it's talk either whether or not it's due to Klopp gaining more influence in those decisions or not, or again, whether it's due to financial constraints. And if you want A, you can't get B and C. You kind of have to forget about those and go all the way down to F and G,
You're good. That's not what we want.
That's 20 years ago. That I'm doing F and G.
Yeah, I know.
I just say FSG. Then I'm just so used to saying FSG and doing F and G.
F and G. We're talking about like Bruno Cheroux. That's the level that we're talking about. We don't want to go back there. We don't want to go back there.
No way. Bruno Cheroux.
He was supposed to be the next Zidane, apparently. That's why we signed him.
We had a few next. That Sammy Diessel was meant to be the next big striker. That Sammy Diessel, I think he was. I think he played like 20 minutes once. No, we had a few. Wow. No.
Yeah.
That still gives me nightmares now, mate, honestly.
Same.
That's a name, that. Bruno Cheroux.
I know. Apparently, who was it? It was who was our manager at the time?
Behulia back then, wasn't it?
Who?
Behulia.
It was Julia, and it was the French connection. So, he was convinced that this guy was going to be the next Zidane. So I was sitting there waiting, like week after week, going, "Where is Zidane? Like, when are we going to see him? Is he going to score a free kick? Is he going to get an assist? Is he going to?"
You know what? They're funny. Them. Those. I think papers write them quite. I think the Times do them quite often. Future footballers do like a World 11, don't they? Future football, and they're always crap. They're always so bad. If you look 10 years later on, there's like one player that makes it well, and everyone's played in League 2. It is, isn't it?
Brilliant.
It really is.
Yeah. Do you know what though? Speaking about like future players, I remember seeing Stevie G he was doing some commentary for, I think it was ITV at the time, I can't remember, and he was talking about, at the time, I think Brendan Rodgers was the manager. I think it was the season where you know, we were doing really well with Suarez and whatnot. And he was talking about Nathaniel Klein, and they were saying how good Nathaniel Klein is in the team. And Gerrard at the time said, oh, we've got a player in the academy called Trent who's absolutely ripping it up, and Nathaniel needs to watch out for his place because Trent's coming. And I remember thinking, oh, that'll be ages away. That'll be like another, 6-7 years or whatever. And it was much sooner than what we thought. And look what Trent's done. And I think people forget that. They forget his trajectory, how high he rose in a really short space of time. So, we need to put some respect on Trent's name, man. Put some respect on his name.
I'm down for that. That's something.
Definitely. You won't catch us not singing his praises as far as supporters here.
Yeah,
I think he's been hard done in by the fandom and the media in general. They're always highlighting him as if it's his fault that Hendo just lets anybody just go right by him.
Absolutely.
But speaking of reminiscing, you're London born, correct?
I am London born. Yes, I am.
How did you come about to become a Liverpool supporter?
Okay, so first and foremost, I grew up a stone's throw away from Selhurst Park, Crystal Palace. So first and foremost, they weren't an option. I remember being about 3 years old and driving past that, like the Holmesdale end, and asking my uncle, like, oh, what's that? And he was like, oh, that's Crystal Palace football team, but they're rubbish. You don't want to support them. So straight away from a really young age, I knew that Palace weren't an option. And at the time, like, I'm an 80s kid. I was born in like 1980, so I'm older than I look. But yeah, at the time, for me, Liverpool were the team, but it wasn't because of that for me. It was just because my best friend at the time was a Liverpool supporter and a massive fan. So he kind of got me into Liverpool. But then once I kind of did my research and kind of like got into the team, it was John Barnes, like all day long. Like John Barnes, our number 10, was at that time was just magical. He was absolutely sensational. It was before, I think he did his either his hamstring. He had a bad injury, didn't he?
His knee, right? Was it his knee?
Yeah, maybe his cruciate. Yeah. But it was the era before that, just before he did that. So he still had a lot of pace. He was still out wide on the wing. I remember that there was a game against a derby against Everton. I think it was Everton, like a 3-3. Or I think, was it the game that Kenny Dalglish, after that game, I think he quit. I think it was that game that made him quit. I could be wrong. But I just remember watching that game and just thinking John Barnes is the best thing ever. But just loving that team that he was in at the time, Alan Hansen, Molby, Jones, Grobbelaar. It was just such a great team, and I just fell in love with Liverpool. And since then, I've been to the city many a time. I've worked in Liverpool loads. I've filmed in Liverpool loads. I did an episode of Hollyoaks in Liverpool once. I've hosted at the EMAs. I think the EMAs were there in 2008, and we were up there for like a couple of weeks. I've done stuff where we've gone to Anfield a few times, like in terms of like non-match days, and got to like go around, like, get the tour and go like around the museum and go into the changing rooms and go pitch side. And so, I just love it. I love Scousers. I think they're amazing. They're my favorite people in the UK. Great sense of humor, funny as heck, really welcoming. And Liverpool's a great night out. I've spent a few nights out over the years in Concert Square, just getting absolutely blotted. Like, it's a great place, man. It's a great place.
I think that's what it is, isn't it? Liverpool and the club sort of feels that city as well, doesn't it? It's sort of so connected together, that club and that city. It's such a good vibe, that city. It's good five football team as well. And I'm pretty much like you, where I grew up in sort of like 80s, early 90s. I was unlucky enough to see Prime Barnes. I think I caught the end of him. But that tells a lot about Barnes, a lot, and how good he was. And I caught just as they were going out, like early 90s, I think it was.
Basically, when we got rubbish, when we were crap.
I think it's my fault. Yeah, just say it out. Just say it's my fault.
No, it wasn't your fault, Damo. God, it was just.
You know what? The last title we won was 91, and I think I've started spawned about 92 because I must be about 3 or 4. So it must have been me, and the only title run is in lockdown. I blame myself countless times, Ricky. I honestly have countless times.
Don't take it on board. That's
too heavy a load to bear, Dave. You can't.
I'm used to it. Go on, mate. You were saying something.
So, what was I saying?
Going up as far as how you became a fan. I think you.
Oh yes. So how I became a fan, like it was actually the first game that I was actually fully invested, like supporting Liverpool, was the cup final against Wimbledon, and we lost that game. It was against the Crazy Gang, and that was, even though we lost, and it was the first game that I was fully invested. It made me want to. I don't know, it gave me a bigger connection with the club, and everyone, growing up through like my school days and my secondary school days, it was like, oh, you're a glory hunter and you're this and you're that. Because obviously people were talking about Liverpool from the 80s and like, and the 70s. But the Liverpool that I grew up with, we were like third, fourth, like, we weren't top tier. It was obviously Manchester United. No, like I always say, like we haven't. Don't get me wrong, we were still doing well. We still won FA Cups. We won the FA Cup against Sunderland in '92.
Never below 8th place.
Yeah, exactly, Rigo. Yeah, we still won cups, but we became a bit of a cup team, didn't we? Like through the '90s. And if we did ever have a bit of a title challenge, it always used to fade away. I always think after Christmas, we never did well over the Christmas period ever, and we'd always kind of fade away after Christmas when all the games came really thick and fast.
That still seems to be the case. In January, we do have a swoon in January.
Yeah, you're right.
The past few seasons.
Yeah, 100%. I always remember when we had that amazing season 13-14, and I think the first game that we had, I think we gave away a penalty, or at least it was definitely one penalty, maybe two. And our goalie at the time, I forget his name, blonde guy. Who?
Sander Westerveld, possibly.
No, like, under Brendan Rodgers. Simon Mignolet.
Yeah.
And I remember listening to it on the radio. I was driving to like a gig, and I remember listening to it on the radio. We gave away a penalty, and he saves the penalty. And I remember thinking, oh yeah, and I'm sure we won that first game. And I remember thinking, if we could just win 3 games in a row at the start of a season, that'll just put us in really good stead. And we did it that year. And since then, I've always like looked at that as like try and get 3 wins under your belt at the start of a season, and you can really give yourself a good like basis to kind of like push on from.
Well, they're the games that you're not match fit either. So to get wins out of them,
yeah,
probably match fit. You're not going at it. You're not in your rhythm. I think
100%. Yeah,
3 wins out of those are massive, absolutely massive, because I think everyone's on a level playing field.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, agree with that. But do you know what? I think there's been so many moments over the years that I've loved as a Liverpool fan, but I think the one that really sticks out in my mind, it was a game. I think it was 97. I want to say 96 or 97. I think, and it was 96, and it was against Newcastle, and it was the 4-3.
Was it
4-3 game? Collymore. Oh my God. Oh my word. What an absolute game. I think it was 96. It was between 95 and 96, I'd say.
We beat them like 4-3 3 times in a row, something like that.
I know. So there was that one at Anfield, which was just the best game ever, just because of the way that the pendulum swung during the game. And then there was the one up at Newcastle that ended up 4-3 as well. And there was another one after that, wasn't there? I think like a bit further down the line.
In a space like a year or 2 years.
That's crazy. I love playing Newcastle. Love it.
The Collymore one there. The commentary as well.
Yeah.
Unbelievable moment that.
Yeah, I think as well there was that period of time when we bought Collymore. I think we bought him in '95. I think we bought him, and around my area there was like all these massive billboard posters on buses, on like massive billboards, and it was like of the Premier League coming back, and it had all of the signings of all the big teams at the time. And I remember that was the first time that Liverpool really like brought in like a massive signing for like massive money. I think it was like 8.5 million at the time, which was, I think that was a record at the time. And that just felt monumental at that time. 8.5 million.
It's more than what we're going to spend this summer, Ricky. It's more than what we're going to spend this summer. So.
Don't say that, Davo. Don't say that. But yeah, I just remember being so excited for the start of that season because we bought Stan Collymore. Obviously, he'd been ripping it up at Nottingham Forest, for the last couple of years. And he was coming to our team. And I just remember thinking, we're so close. We're just a couple of players away. And the fact that he was coming into the team, I remember thinking, this is it. We're going to do it. And he scored on his debut. I don't know if you guys ever saw that game or you remember it, but he scored an absolute worldie on his debut. And I just remember losing my absolute shit. Just completely losing it.
You think you were going to... That was
yeah. Didn't quite work out that way, but yeah, it's the hope that kills us, right? The hope that kills us.
Definitely, and it what endears us to these teams as well. I'm also a child of the '80s, born in '83, and born and raised in New York. And I grew up a Knicks fan, and it was just heartbreak every spring. You know what I mean? So that's what kind of makes these. The high times that much more rewarding and
absolutely
and make us appreciate it more. So I definitely.
So Rigo, I guess the Knicks at the time, that was, I guess the Chicago Bulls were our Manchester United. Do you know what I mean? It was that because you guys had an amazing team back then, the Knicks.
They were our Manchester City, if we're comparing it to today's age. They were our Manchester City
today, yeah, absolutely,
of that time compared to the Knicks, yeah. Patrick Ewing and John Starks and others.
Really good team, and only kind of it was just because the Bulls had Jordan, really, if we're honest, that they stopped them from kind of crossing the line.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and now Man City just has all that oil money. So
Do you know what? I used to get really angry about Man City and just like their whole setup. But the fact that Klopp has done what he's done over the last few years, and with people always say, yeah, but Liverpool have spent money and you guys have spent, you broke the record for a defender and with Van Dijk, and you spent 70 million, 80 million on Alisson. I'm like, yeah, I get that. But let's be honest, we bought those players off the back of selling Coutinho for a ridiculous amount of money because the market was skewed because of
I think we had to sell a few houses outside as well, I think we had to sell a few houses around ground.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised.
It's in the club's name as well, so they get away with it.
But the way that Liverpool have done it over the last few years and the way that Klopp has kind of like stitched it all together is, for me, a bigger achievement than what Man City have done. And don't get me wrong, I know Man City, that I'm not downplaying anything they've done because they're phenomenal and they're creating a dynasty. So let's be real about that. But to do it the way that Jurgen Klopp's done it, with less financial backing, he makes stars rather than just buying stars. He makes players better. He's just the most charismatic. Like I watch him on the TV and I'm like, I want to play for Jurgen Klopp. I want to like jump through the screen and like, even if I just like throw him, even if I'm a ball boy, like anything I can do to like show him that like we're with you, man. We're with you, because he's just so inspiring. And I love what he's done with the club, and I love the way that he's taken on board the culture of the city, and he's very in tune with his surroundings. And I said it before, like when people were doubting him at the start of the season, I was like, if he did it once, he can do it again. You don't become a bad manager overnight. And if he did it once, the way that he did it, with the restrictions and the lack of oil money, the handouts, exactly. If he did it once, he can do it again. So I 100% had and still have full faith in Jurgen Klopp. A lot of my Liverpool friends, I won't name them, but they're like, "Oh, get rid of Jurgen Klopp," and I'm like, "What are you talking about? Like, what are you absolutely talking about?" Only any real Liverpool fan will know that Jurgen Klopp is probably our most important signing. Like, getting him to stay is probably the most important thing that we could ever do.
Where would you put him? Go on, Rigo.
No, I was going to say 1,000%. We wouldn't be nowhere as close to successful as we've been without him. FSG would be asking for half of what they're asking for now, if that.
Yes.
And we definitely need to put respect on Klopp's name and appreciate him while we still have him. But go right ahead, Damo.
Where would you put in top 5 Premier League managers of all time, Ricky?
Top 5 of all time. Oh, okay. So top, obviously, it's got. Wow, that's tricky actually. I would say. I'd say Guardiola's
careful
probably
language right now. Be careful language at top. Careful language.
Premier League era, yeah? That's what we're talking.
Yeah, Premier League era, yeah. That's our era, isn't it? Yeah.
I think realistically, I think Ferguson has to go top because of the longevity and because of just, I was listening to Rio Ferdinand speaking the other day, and he was like, he said something that I didn't agree with, but I was like, it's an interesting point. But he was basically saying, Liverpool fans always talking about the fact that they made so many points, like record points, and a few seasons in a row. But he was saying Manchester United could have done that in under Ferguson, because the fact that Ferguson used to just like throw. They'd win the league with 4 or 5 games to go is what they were saying. And he would say that they would start to experiment with the team and just throw in random players so that they could save their bigger stars for like Champions League finals and semi-finals and whatnot. So I was like, do you know what? I don't agree, but it's an interesting it's an interesting point. It's an interesting point. It's an interesting point.
Revisionist history, in my opinion.
Yeah. You still can't take away from the fact that Liverpool have, they've amassed, totals in the Premier League that would have 9 times out of 10 won, most Premier Leagues, most seasons. And it's only the fact that Manchester City have got, all of the tools at their disposal, and they were able to tip us by 1 point here and 1 point there. So that's another reason why Klopp's an absolute genius, like absolute genius. But yeah, back to top 5.
You've bigged him up now. It needs to get higher here.
I'm gonna go Ferguson. I'm gonna go Klopp, just because, like I said before, the landscape of how he's flourished, been able to flourish. Then Guardiola, because we can't deny that, taking allegiances to one side for a second, the way that most teams play now is because of Pep Guardiola, and he's a genius, and in terms of charisma and all that sort of stuff, I'll take Klopp all day long, but but with regards to the influence and the impact that he's had on just football in general, from elite down to grassroots level, he's done so much for the game, and he has to be given respect there. So Guardiola. Then I'll probably go King Kenny, because he won the league with Blackburn, with money bags Blackburn at the time, but King Kenny.
There's 2 names I'm thinking of. One of them's missing out here. And
I'm gonna go. Mourinho's got to be in there as well. Mourinho's got to be in there.
No Wenger.
Do you know what? No, you're right. Yeah, Arsene Wenger should be in there. He only misses out, and obviously, like, I've gone with my heart over my head. Obviously, Wenger, did amazing things. He did amazing things with Arsenal, but I feel like he tainted that legacy with the second half of his tenure. The second half of his tenure was so not questionable, but so. It was such a come down for the Arsenal fans.
Yeah. I'm not saying out yet, because we might get that yet. We might get that yet.
All right, yeah, that's true. That's true. But no doubt, Arsene Wenger's up there, man. Top manager. And I spent like most of the noughties kind of just like, watching the Arsenal teams and just wishing that we could like play like them, and like he did. Arsene Wenger's got to be in there. I've got to change.
He was influential too. If you're gonna say Pep was influential,
you're right.
Arsene the same credit.
I've tried to go with my Liverpool hat, but Arsene Wenger's got to be in there. So I'll swap out Kenny for Arsenal. I've got to.
I think he did revolutionise the Premiership though as well. Like
you're right, he did.
The way players eat and things like that now, and the way they look at themselves. You know,
he did.
Have, like Neil Buddett running around, wouldn't we? If we didn't have Wenger coming.
They'll be smoking cigarettes on the practice pitch.
I tried to go on my Liverpool head. I tried to get King Kenny in there, but you're right. Like Arsene Wenger deserves that 100%. And you know the Invincibles.
While top 5 is debatable, I think we can all agree who the worst manager in Premier League history is.
Oh, worst ever. There's been a few.
I think
he manages Chelsea currently.
I think it's.
Do you know what? I really like Frank Lampard. Like, I really like him. And I really wanted him to.
As a person,
as a person, and as a player, as a manager, I liked what he did at Derby. I think he did well. I liked what he did when he came in and he had restrictions, transfer bans when he was at Chelsea, and he brought the youngsters in, Tammy Abrahams, Tomori, Hudson Odoi. Like I really liked what he did with Jody Morris as well. And I feel bad for him because I don't think he's. I think if he was given a chance,
he's in the deep end, isn't it? With no armbands.
Oh yeah. I think it was too much too soon. Too much. Yeah. If you look at what John Terry did, I think John Terry played the long game. He was a number 2. He's kind of like he's getting his experience. He's not going through the motions. That's the wrong phrase, but he's just experiencing a lot more.
Develop.
Yeah, you can develop out of sight almost. You can take more on board. I think Michael Carrick did that quite well as well at Manchester United. Kind of like did it from without the spotlight on you, like 100%. And that's not to say that Frank's done it the wrong way, but it's easy to say in hindsight, isn't it? I just think that he probably should have worked, which no one does anymore, do they?
He's ran before he could walk.
Yeah.
If Chelsea had hired him earlier, he could have gotten 2 teams relegated this season.
He still might. Chelsea are not safe yet. I'm telling you.
Oh my god, yeah. But when they put him back in charge, I was like, what? Why? Why would you do that? What? Why would you put Frank back in charge? Because it didn't work.
They need someone to get him up from Championship.
This has got to be one long episode of The Office. They're just recording all this, and it's going to be released as a docu-comedy.
Oh my god! Do you know what? When he became Everton manager, I genuinely believed he was going to push on. They were going to push on with him as manager. I genuinely believe that. I went to some charity gig in Liverpool actually, and I jumped into a taxi. And the taxi driver was he was a red, but we were talking about Everton as well. And he was like, Frank's never going to do it. He was like, it's not going to end well. And I was like, oh no, I think he might do okay. But he was so right because like Everton, they might go down, and it probably is going to be largely because of Frank Lampard.
Oh, well, that's it.
Yeah,
they've got some tough win.
I'm not altogether that familiar with the history, but it's just another. Tory just shitting on a Liverpool in some way or another.
Oh my god! Do you know what though? In all seriousness, I don't know what it's like for you guys, but I can't imagine the Premier League without Everton. I can't imagine it. I can't imagine not having the Merseyside derby.
Yeah.
Like, I just can't imagine it. As much as I don't ever want Everton to win anything, I still want them there so that we can beat them in the Merseyside derby like every year.
You're guaranteed like at least 3 points this season, aren't you? So
at least four.
It's a guaranteed 3 or 4 points every season.
Yeah.
We need that.
Yeah, it's definitely would take some getting used to, and if they do go down, I think we're pretty much in agreement that they're probably there for a while. I don't foresee them making that jump like Burnley did, for example, back into the Premier.
It's a hard league. It's hard.
Very hard.
It's probably the hardest league in the world in terms of getting out of it. It's probably harder than.
And they'd lose so many players, wouldn't they? That so many players would jump ship, and they'd have to have a bit of a flash sale, get rid of get the wage bill down.
I hope Jordan Pickford doesn't have to jump ship, because I don't know how good he'll swim. He had a tough time reaching. He had a really tough time reaching that corner shot by Callum Wilson yesterday. That was a marvelous goal.
Great goal. Brilliant stuff. Oh, Newcastle are flying, aren't they? They're absolutely flying. Obviously, I do the podcast with Callum Wilson, and he just win, lose or draw at the minute. I think they're absolutely buzzing up there, and he's just on such a high. Like, even if they've lost the game, which isn't that often, if they've lost the game, he knows that, you know, they're going to come back. They've got a game at St. James's Park next. We don't lose at St. James's Park or score a couple of goals. They're so confident and on such a high that, yeah, they're just riding the crest of that wave right now. They're absolutely flying. And I've got to say, I do enjoy watching them.
Just think, like, about 4 years ago, those two players the other way around, weren't they? Antonio and Callum Wilson, they were both... West Ham were pushing for Europe. Newcastle was struggling at the bottom. You know, imagine the mindset changes in both of those two. Yeah, it's a good dynamic you've got there, and I bet it's a right to have
It's a power struggle. It's a power struggle because obviously Mikel always likes to throw in the fact that he's playing in Europe at the minute, and even though they're not doing great in the Premier League, he still knows what it's like to play in Europe and to score in Europe. And Callum's striving for that. And Callum's like, yeah, but you might be playing in Europe, but you're playing against pub teams. So does that really count? Like, you're playing at Larnaca.
Like, big boy league now, and it's
exactly. But it's a great dynamic. The boys have got really good banter. They can give it as good as they get, and you know they don't take themselves too seriously as well. So that's good. It's good.
Awesome stuff. My son's name's Antonio. I've been a fan of Mikel Antonio for quite a while. One of my favorite non-Liverpool players. So
yeah, he's a handful, man. He's a handful when he's on his game. Absolutely, such a handful. Like, and I say this on the pod every week. Whenever West Ham do something good in the lead up to a goal, he's always part of it. He never goes missing. He misses a lot of like chances, but he's always in there. And he's always, you know, he always shows up. And he's a handful, man. He's a top player.
Definitely one of my favorites there. Any inside info on where Declan Rice is going, since you have kind of a insight there?
Oh,
or is he?
So the short answer is no. I don't have any insight on Dec going, but the talk that I keep hearing just amongst, like we all hear just on social media and in interviews, and I think he's going to Arsenal. If he does go, if he goes anywhere, I think he'll go to Arsenal. And if he doesn't go to Arsenal, I think he'll stay. But I think that all depends on what happens with, their situation with their manager and how they finish the season. I think that's got a lot to do with it. I think Dec he enjoys playing for West Ham. And a bit like Harry Kane, I think he'll hang on until something happens where he can't not stay.
Until your manager has a breakdown in front of everyone and outs the club. I think that's what Declan Rice is waiting for.
I don't know. But what I will say is I've seen him a couple of times. Obviously, I watched him in the match during the week against Liverpool, and he's a top player. Top player. You don't really understand how good he is when you watch him on the TV. Excuse me. He's much quicker than you think, because I always think to myself, he doesn't look that fast. He's not that pacey. Like, what does Declan actually do? But he breaks up play. He's brilliant on the ball, and he's a brilliant passer as well. And he's very skillful too. I don't think he gets enough credit for that. So yeah, he's a top player, top player. Would you guys want Dec in our team? Do you reckon he'd fit?
The English tax is just so high. I don't think FSG is built for that, unfortunately.
I've always thinking like he'd be a good number 8. I think he'd be a good number. I know he plays at 6, but I think he'd be a good number 8. I think he's quite box to box.
He would be. Yeah, he would be. You're right. He would be.
good at taking on players and direct. A bit. I'm not a Gerrard, but that sort of player that need that sort of drive through the middle. I think he's got that in him. I know he plays as 6 and he's good at interceptions, good at tackles, good at spraying the ball around. But I think he can change his game up a little bit. And I think under Klopp, I think he'd thrive under Klopp.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right as well. I think, but Rigo, 100%, man. That English tax is not appealing to our owners. You're right.
25 billion, not going to stretch that far.
Yeah, Americans, we're not a fans of English taxes, so.
And as an Englishman, I'm not a fan of American owners, mate. I'm not a fan of American owners. Throw that out there.
Yeah, what you said earlier is right. I think FSG have had a bit of they've had like not an easy ride, but it was a master stroke getting Jurgen Klopp, because it's made their tenure seem way better than what it probably would have been if we didn't get him. If we got a different manager that didn't have the guile and the vision of Jurgen Klopp, I think we could have had a very, very different situation over the last 5 or 6 years, like very, very different.
Yep, and the other point that you made earlier, the Coutinho wanting to leave and Barcelona just paying through the nose for every player that they were acquiring at that point.
In this.
Say that again, Demo.
Mike Edwards, who was before Julian Ward, first point director, the way he got like 25 million for Solanke and 30 million and 20 million like Ryan Brewster and stuff, that allowed us to bring players that we needed. Because if we didn't have Mike Edwards working his magic wand, we'd have been getting your lower league, your lower league players, standard players, because which wouldn't have had the money. Wouldn't have had the money to bring anyone in.
Yeah, 100%.
I think we also kind of went away from shopping from relegated teams. We did get Genie off of Newcastle when they went down, and then forgetting who else we got. Robbo from Hull City when they went down as well. So
that's right. Yeah,
we've done enough shopping there with semi-Premier League proven players that need coaching up to reach levels. I don't think we've done enough shopping in that aisle.
Yeah, that's a fair point. That's a fair point.
We have been shopping Portuguese. Now we're shopping, Dutch. Hopefully we get a little French cuisine coming in as well. and
Bruno Shearer, get him back.
Hey, it'd be next to who is it? What's his name now? Who's it? Jay Spearing. We're next to Jay Spearing.
Jay Spearing. Oh my gosh, you remember Jay?
23s or something.
Did he?
He's back.
Oh, that makes me. Is he back now?
He's been back.
Oh, that makes me happy.
2 years.
That makes. I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
Signing in summer, Ricky. He was a big signing.
I didn't know that. Like Jay Spearing, when he was in the team, I just I loved him. Local lads.
Didn't you? Did it give you hope of being a footballer?
It did. I'm not gonna lie. It did. It did. No, Jay gave everything, man. He wore
part of Liverpool, and you could tell he's a scout.
I loved watching him. Obviously, not the most technically gifted, but sometimes you don't need that. Sometimes you just need people that are just going to go to war for you, and he used to do that. So that's all I need. I need to see effort and determination, and just go to war and leave everything out on the pitch. And he used to do that. So
that's all you can really ask for, right? At least that effort from players every time you see them out there.
Yeah, 100.
Going back on players, Ricky, your favourite Liverpool player. I think it's going to be an obvious one, isn't it? It really is going to be an obvious one, isn't it? Especially growing up the era I've grown up in as well. It's going to be obvious. And why is Gerrard your favourite player?
That's the better question, probably.
Steven Gerrard. I remember seeing him play. Early in his career, I think we were playing against Villa, and was it Villa? I can't remember. But early doors, so we had he had his shaved hairstyle, kind of skinny, gangly, and he just ran
uniform.
And he just ran riot, and I just loved his he was ferocious. Like, it's just so ferocious, skillful, fast, powerful. Like,
skills,
and had that.
His skills. He didn't get the credit for what he had. You know.
No, he doesn't. He doesn't at all. He was rapid. Yeah, he was rapid. But what I loved about him as well, ferocious. Like, had that edge to him. Like, a bit like when Wayne Rooney first came on the scene as well. Had that edge where you just thought they'd smack anyone in the chops, like at any given moment after a bad tackle. I love that. I absolutely love that. So yeah, Gerrard for me, and just the fact that you guys know when Gerrard was in the team, that era of Liverpool, we were kind of like the nearly team. We won a few cups quite laboredly, but you know, I wouldn't change those for the world. But Gerrard was the constant that just pulled us out of a hole every single time. Like, you know, we'd be, you know, 2-1 down against Southampton or something on a Saturday, and then, you know, you're watching the scores and just hoping for a miracle, and lo and behold, Gerrard was pull out a worldie out of nowhere. Do you know what I mean? Every single time Gerrard would pull us out of a hole. No, I edited it. That's my radio training kicking in there.
You are trained up right there. You are trained up right. You can tell that. You know what? It breaks my heart that Gerrard didn't have this team. Absolutely breaks my heart. He deserved this team that we have now.
100%. Like I was like all of us, gutted the way that he left. Like, it just shouldn't have happened that way. No. It just never should have happened that way. And I know that obviously he went to the States, and you know, he probably like had a nice quality of life and whatnot. But for me, it shouldn't have gone that way at all. It didn't feel right, did it? It just didn't feel right. And even like the last few matches and things like that, it just felt like it was the wrong way for it to end for, you know, a generational talent, one of our best ever players.
Yeah. And that happened under whose ownership?
He'd get a 10-year contract these days, wouldn't he? Because we won't.
Yeah, he would. Yeah, but yeah, FSG, they dropped the ball on that one.
Definitely, and even I'm not sure if you got a chance to check out Steven's documentary that he has. I think it's on Amazon Prime, but when they're kind of recapping that last little bit of his career and see him in a LA Galaxy kit.
Yeah.
Not the way you want to wrap up. Not the way you want to wrap up.
Just didn't feel right. Just didn't feel right. Just did not feel right. But yeah, the guy was just a joy to watch. Scouser, just a top player. Do you know what I used to love as well? Whenever we got new players, they would always gravitate towards Gerrard. You could always see that they wanted his approval because he was that good. No matter how good they were, he was always on their level or above them. So I used to just love the fact that whether it was a Fernando Torres or a Xabi Alonso or like a Suarez, they just gravitated towards Gerrard because he was just the talisman and he was just so fucking brilliant. Like, he was just the best.
He was the guy.
Yeah. I miss him, man. I miss him.
Yeah, we're definitely missing a player of even 80% of Gerrard on this squad, which is absolutely insane.
I'll take his right foot, honestly.
Yeah.
I'll take Xabi Alonso spraying the ball around as well.
Xabi. What a player!
Not earlier this year, but late towards last year in one of the Legends games, he was just absolutely bossing it around. But kudos to him for the turnaround of Bayer Leverkusen as well. But I take a version of him as well.
Yeah, you're like really well placed to talk about Bayer Leverkusen because he's doing really good things there. And I've heard people kind of like, you know, touting him as like maybe like, you know, the guy after the guy that takes after Klopp, maybe when Klopp like decides to, you know, hang his boots up. I hope he doesn't. I hope Klopp stays for the next 20 years. but if he decides to you know,
honestly, Klopp, at least you said it earlier, didn't you, Ricky? You said it earlier, like Klopp is the guy that we need to keep more than anyone.
100%.
Players get older, they come out and in and out of the door every season. So, but Klopp, he could be there for. I don't think he is going to be, but that breaks my heart. But yeah, like you said, 20 years would be beautiful, wouldn't it?
It'd be the best. It'd be the absolute best. But I was watching something. I was watching something the other day. I think, you know, when we think back to like, you know, Shankly and like, you know, the old Liverpool's managers of the past, the legends. I think Klopp's done more years than most of those guys, like their 10 years now. So we think of like, I think of like Bill Shankly as like being at the helm for, you know, just forever, like 25 years or whatever, but it wasn't. And Klopp's done like as long, if not longer than those guys. So yes, he's creating his own history. I love that.
I attribute that just because I'm older now. I'm 40, and just those time just gets compressed so much that I feel like he's been managing not that long, but around what 8 years, 9 years now, almost.
Like been a while.
7, 8 years. Yeah. That's 2015, wasn't it? 2015.
We used to managers going in and out as well, aren't we? Like it's very rare you see managers like that last that long. I mean, you had your Fergie, you had your Wenger, and then since Pep's doing a little bit, I think it's like a year behind Klopp, isn't he? But other than that, it's managing out. And if he's Chelsea, then you manage every season, isn't it? So.
Well, we went through a bit of a stage where, you know, we just couldn't hold on to managers. And I remember thinking, you know, whether it was, you know, the debacle between Roy Evans and Gerard Houllier, which was just an absolute mess. Like, what? I don't know whose idea that was to kind of put those two together, because it just completely undermined Roy Evans. And it was never going to work. So then obviously Houllier takes over, does really well for us, like, but I never really believed that we were going to surpass Manchester United at the time. I never really believed that. So he was probably a level or two below Alex Ferguson. Then obviously we had Benitez that came in, and I thought to myself, right, yeah, he's going to do it. He won us the Champions League. I was like, right, yes, this is the guy. He's going to bring us like players like, I think at the time Pablo Aimar was like top of our list at one point, and he got us Morientes, and I was thinking, yeah, this is going to be it. And then it kind of never really happened. And then we got the person that shall not be named after Benitez. Terrible signing for us. Good manager, but just not a Liverpool manager.
He's not a big club manager.
You don't want to throw rocks at Crystal Palaces, right?
Correct.
You've been
but yeah, not a Liverpool manager.
That's your uncle. That's your uncle. That's your uncle.
No.
I was throwing shade at Palace.
But yeah, he just wasn't. I remember, who did we sign that everybody just lost their mind over? It was a left back, Paul Konchesky. Do you remember Paul Konchesky? And we were like, why have we signed Paul Konchesky? Like, this is, and don't get me wrong, Paul Konchesky, great professional, was at Charlton for a long time, like good admirer, like good, strong player, but not a Liverpool player. Do you know what I mean? A bit like when United signed Fellaini. Like, he was great at Everton, but was he a Manchester United player? He wasn't. Same way that Paul Konchesky wasn't a Liverpool player. And, you know, we all know how that ended. Like, that was a bad time. And then obviously King Kenny came in to kind of like, you know, steady the ship, as it were. And do you know what? I really thought that Kenny was gonna have a like a second wind, like have like a really good go of it. Obviously, we got to the Carabao Cup final or the League Cup final. But yeah, I think that was the Andy Carroll era, wasn't it? When we signed Andy Carroll on the last day of the transfer window for like 50 million.
Spires on the same window though. Spires and Carroll on the same window, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you're right.
That's a mad double swoop like that. That couldn't be more chalk and cheese, could it ever?
Like so different. So different.
More expensive.
Can you believe that? Wow. To be fair to Andy Carroll, he was ripping it up at Newcastle at the time. So, you know, yeah. So, but just wasn't a Liverpool player for me. Top professional, good player. But for me, when I look at Liverpool and look at the way that we played over the years and look how we've wanted to play, Andy Carroll just didn't really fit into that. And I think Brendan Rodgers was quite good when he came in to say, look, you don't fit into the way that I want to play. We want to play with pace and like quickly and on counter attacks, and you don't quite fit into that. So fair play to Brendan Rodgers. But big up Andy Carroll though. I liked him. He scored a couple of good goals.
Good hair.
Great header of the ball. Yeah, top player.
No, I was saying good hair. Yeah, I always had good hair.
Oh, good hair.
I'm a fan of the top knot as well.
Yeah. You got the same Andy Carroll vibe going on there, Rigo.
Rigo. That's why he's fat spot in Liverpool, Rigo. Andy Carroll. That's what it was.
I thought I was watching
I
Gareth
always
Bale
give
for a
extra
second,
points
Rigo.
when grading out players or rating players. I always give extra points if they have cool hair or good hair.
What do you think of Tsimikas? Tsimikas and Nunez's hair. They got long hair.
That baby Darwin. I'm a fan. I'm definitely a fan. Yeah, we haven't seen him at all. Andy's been pretty much nailed on to that starting lineup. We haven't seen Simi since the international break, I don't think.
Yeah, that's right. I saw him on the touchline against West Ham and kind of like warming up and stuff. I don't know. I fear for him. I feel like he's probably at the stage now where he wants to play, week in, week out. He's good enough to play in a lot of teams in the Premier League. So rather than playing second fiddle, I don't know, maybe he's going to want to go somewhere else and play week in, week out. But he's been a great understudy for Robertson. No complaints. Yeah,
definitely took a little while to get there. I feel he gets too many niggles quite often. I don't feel he's quite as available as he should be.
Yeah,
but
that's true.
He definitely puts effort and I feel definitely bought into Liverpool and kind of embrace the team as well.
Yeah.
But I'm definitely a fan of the hairdo. Yeah, going back to your question there.
I think Nunez wears it better than Tsimikas, though. I'll say that.
Definitely. And that's why I kind of like Crepem Thuram as well. I'm a fan of the locks also. So
yeah, man, definitely.
Or Manu Kone from the Bundesliga as well. I more than welcome him.
Definitely.
So just to kind of, I know we're hitting about the hour 15 mark, and I just want to keep going. Obviously, this is just a great conversation, but hopefully we were able to schedule you for a second appearance here and kind of delve deeper into more of your history as a Liverpool supporter and more of your personal history as well. But to kind of bookend today's podcast, I want to get your take on where do you think Liverpool finished this season? Do we get the top four or definitely 5 or 6? We end up at where do you think we slot in?
Go on, Ricky, say it off. Go on, you can say it.
Well, if you Davo, you're killing me. Well, if you look at the last time we had a drop-off season the way that we have this year, it was after we won the league, right? And we kind of dropped away really badly. I think that was the season that we lost.
Everton killed our season pretty much.
Yeah. Pickford kind of like, accidentally on purpose. gave Virgil a Medusa. Yes. And we managed to find a way. It took us the majority of the season. We managed to find a way, put like a great run together at the end of the season. And I'm not going to speak too soon, but we're in good form right now. So my heart says yes. My head says I think we finish 5th. I think we go real close. And I think we finish 5th. And I think there's just probably one too many things that have kind of gone against us during the season that will stop us from getting over the Champions League line. But you never know. There's so many twists and turns. It's the Premier League. You never know what's going to happen. Look at Spurs the other day. Like everyone was like, Spurs are dead and buried. They get smashed by Newcastle, and then they come back and they draw against Man United, like with a great comeback performance. So you just never know what's going to happen in this league. That's why the Premier League is the best league in the world.
1000%. And another question to kind of gauge where you what side of the coin you land on. FSG in, FSG out.
I'm gonna
This one's gonna get clipped. Just be prepared. This one will get clipped and posted.
Okay, do you know what? FSG. I've got respect for FSG just because they came in at a time where we didn't know what was going to happen to our club. I was in I think it was my 30th at the time, and I was in Vegas for my birthday when kind of we were we going to get new owners? What was going to happen? We had a deadline to meet, and every day I was like checking into CBS to see like what was going on and like what's going to happen. And when FSG came in, it just felt like an absolute godsend. It really did. And like I said earlier, I feel like if they didn't sign Jurgen Klopp, it could have gone very, very differently, but they did. And they brought him to our club. So we have them to thank for bringing Jurgen Klopp to us. But that being said, moving forward, yeah, FSG out.
You're welcome back on.
Yeah.
You just made Damon's weekend, yo.
Yeah, get him out. Thanks for your help, but yeah, we're done now.
You've been good stewards up until this point, and unless they're willing to change their philosophy of what they're spending for the team, then they need to move on, because we're just going to keep hitting this roadblock of where we're just 20 millions in player moves shy each year.
Yeah,
the thing is, Vigo, the thing is,
football's evolving.
You could still thank them for what they've done, can't you? And still be like, they're not good enough now. That's the thing. You can't be in debt to them forever just because they brought Klopp in, or just because it saved us and things like that. Things change, and they haven't changed, which with the football. So it's as simple as, if we want to progress in the future, we want to see us win titles. I can't see it happening at FSG any longer, if I'm honest. Can't.
Yeah. Like the marriage of FSG and Klopp has raised Liverpool from being kind of a stepping stone club for stars or talent to now being the destination place, besides obviously Real Madrid, because we just keep losing to them in player acquisitions as well. But I just think we've gotten to this level. Now that we're at this level, you need more.
Stay there.
So it's up to them whether or not they want to be part of that. But that takes so
moolah. Yeah, it does.
But
FSG
Rickie,
out.
That's it. It's done now. That's it.
So that's
He'll be tweeting that tonight. Yes, thanks for starting tonight, guys.
And before we kind of wrap it up, I'll take this will get posted probably in a day or two, so might not be in time for the match itself, but I'd love to get your prediction for Sunday's match against the Spurs.
Okay, prediction against Spurs. I feel like it's going to be harder than what most people might be thinking, just because I think the new manager bounce now is fully kicked in. I think it took a game for it to happen. And when I saw some of the highlights, and when they scored a couple of their goals, the way that they celebrated with Ryan on the side just looked like they were fully in the trenches together. So I reckon passion is going to get them over the line, like, for the rest of the season. I think they've got a good unity there with the team and Ryan. I know they get on really well. But we're in good form. I think, a lot of our players that have been out for a little while, like, Diaz is back, and, Jota's scoring again. Nunez is back in the team, like, albeit from off the bench, but we're playing well. Gakpo's on fire for me. So I think we've got enough to beat him. I'd say probably 2-1, I'd say.
Awesome. From your mouth to the podcast recording to God's ears, I hope it travels and it turns out to be true. Definitely need to win pretty much every single match to even have a prayer's chance of finishing top 4. But Rickie, you've been supremely generous with your time today. This has been one of the best podcasts we've ever recorded here on LFC Transfer Room. We'd love to have you back whenever our schedules can align, and Liverpool isn't playing that day, just in case. But thank you so much for being on the LFC Transfer Room podcast. For the audience, please make sure to like and subscribe. You can find Rickie on the Footballers Football podcast. So right when you exit the menu on your podcast app, please make sure to search and subscribe to that app. But any closing statement for our audience, Rickie, before we wrap it up?
Closing statement. We'll be back this time next year. We're going to be talking about a very, very different Liverpool. I truly believe that. We're going to have a good transfer window, and we'll be back, man. We'll be back top of the league, fighting for titles, fighting for the league, fighting for the Champions League eventually. It won't be next season, but we will be back. In Klopp, we trust.
1000%. Thanks again. Anything from you, Damon, before we close it out?
Said it perfectly. In Klopp, we trust. FSG out. That's it. That's the way we roll right now. Yeah, we will be back though, won't we? Let's be honest here. We will be out if we keep Klopp. We've got some beautiful players out there now. We've got some brilliant players. Our attacking line is the best in the world. There's no one close to our attacking line. Yeah. We need to get this summer right, though. This summer is so important. If we don't get it right, then we will be back. We'll be back later. We need to be back next year, don't we? That's what we need to do. We need to get the summer right. And I think we can, even under FSG's constraints, because we have before. But I still reserve judgment. Yeah, I'm quite nervous about the summer. I'm quite nervous about the summer.
It will happen, Damo. Don't worry. It's going to happen. It's going to happen.
Have faith.
Don't go far.
Hey, even if no Champions League next year, it still leaves 3 trophies there for the taking. So I'm definitely right there with you. We will be back, and in Klopp we trust. And FSG invest or FSG out. One of those 2 options.
Yes, absolutely. Listen, boys, it's been an absolute pleasure, man. You two are absolute legends. I love the podcast, and it's been just an absolute joy to chat Liverpool with you guys. I'll be back soon if you have me.
100%. The pleasure all ours, mate. The pleasure all ours.
Thank you so much, Ricky. Well, thank you all for joining today's podcast. Please make sure to like and subscribe. And as always, up the Reds.